Hi, and welcome to 15-minute consulting best practices. This is actually a soft launch of this LinkedIn Live event. And I'm glad you're here. We didn't promote this widely. We'll get this going and then we'll have even more people attending. I'm David A. Fields, and over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to answer questions submitted by you, leaders of small consulting practices. My team reviewed all the questions that you and your peers submitted and chose the ones we're going to work through today. I'll go through as many as I hit in 15 minutes, and then we'll just continue next Monday. So please continue to submit your questions. You can do it in the chat, or you can submit them on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best ways to do it. You can direct message me on LinkedIn with a question, and then we'll do it in our next or one of the upcoming LinkedIn Live events. If I can, I'll also respond to comments and questions in the chat here, as long as they're related to whatever we're covering. And if you don't know who I am and my firm, we work exclusively with small consulting firms that want to reach the next stage of growth or financial success. So the best practices I'll be telling you are really based on our experience working directly with well over 300 small consulting firms, ranging from solo consultants to boutiques that are in the $100 million range. So with that, let's actually dive into the first question. So I'm going to ask my colleague Deidre to post the first question, and I will answer it. I'm struggling to get people to tell me about pricing and to use the heart attack question during the context discussion. Can you help? Yeah, so let's give this a try. Struggling to get folks to tell you about pricing. This is a fee tolerance question. So, and for folks who are not familiar with the context discussion is the discovery process that you have with a prospect before you submit a proposal. So after someone has said, we want you to solve our chocolate chip shortage problem, and you're like, oh, wait, I might be able to help you with that. You conduct a context discussion, and that's all laid out in detail in articles and in the book. There's a certain place in that where you're going to test for fee tolerance. You're going to ask the prospect to give you some information on what they may be willing to spend. That specific place, so that we ground ourselves, is in the parameters section. It tends to be toward the end. If you are concerned that someone's calling you or reaching out to you that cannot possibly work with you because they don't have the finances, you might ask earlier. But typically we do this towards the end. We cover it in parameters. Parameters are things like people, time, money, geography, anything that will affect scope. And some of it's important, but some of it is actually a foil so that you can ask about money. You can ask about budget and ask the heart attack question. And the heart attack question sounds something like this. What fee, after we've talked through everything, so we're having talked through this whole, I know all of your outcomes you want and all of that. The heart attack question will be, what fee, if we came back with it, would give you an absolute heart attack, knock you off your chair? Because I've found that's really bad for business if I give my clients heart attacks. Now, you may do your own version of it. I sometimes, if I'm not feeling as funny, I might say, what fee is just going to be beyond feasible? What's the limit here? If you are struggling to get information back, there's a good chance you're not asking the question because you are uncomfortable. You feel like, wait, that's not a fair question to ask. That question is just, whatever they say, they're going to think I'm just going to push the limits on the project to whatever they say. And the answer is, it certainly is, their budget certainly plays into it. But if you don't know what they're willing to spend, you cannot design the best possible project for your client. The absolute best design, let's just say the absolute best design is $40,000, and they say they're willing to spend $100,000. You will at least go back and think, wow, they're willing to spend so much more than I thought. Could I make this a better project? Could I design this in a way where the likelihood of them achieving their outcome is even higher? And if you can, then maybe you come back and say, there's a $50,000, right? So you don't have to hit their limit. On the other hand, if the best possible way to design the project to achieve their outcome, you think that's $150,000, and they say, look, wouldn't possibly spend more than 100,000. That's valuable information. You need to know that. And then you can tell them, all right, that's going to be that is frankly a little bit lower than we would typically do here, or certainly lower than the Rolls Royce, but we can design something that will get you close to where you want to be. Okay. So it's really valuable, and you have to know that first. Let's say you are asking that question. You say, what's the limit here? What's the top end that I could come back with on a fee for what we've been talking about, and you would consider it reasonable? You ask that, and they're like, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. Don't have a budget. Don't know anything about it. Okay, that's pretty typical. So how do you respond? You respond by giving them a number. You might throw out a ridiculous number, but all we need to get them to do is to respond to a number. So you might say, well, I mean, look, you're only a $20 million business yourself. So clearly $1 million project would be ridiculous. So we do know there is some limit. $1 million would be silly, right? They're going to say, well, yeah, obviously $1 million is silly. Okay, so what point is it no longer silly? And wait, see how they answer. Most cases, they will give you a response. But let's say, again, they don't. They say, I just don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I don't know what silly is. You might say, well, what about half that? What about 500,000? Still silly? They go, yeah, of course that's silly. Well, again, so what is it? 250, 100, 75? Well, 75, I think, is probably where we top out. Great. So give them numbers, start high, work your way down. That usually works. This takes practice. I will fully admit it, but hopefully that answers the question. If not, or if you're listening and you have additional follow-on questions, type them in the chat, and I can see them over here, and I'll do my best to answer. Deidre, what was the next question? Let's see whether we can do another question. If you can throw that onto the screen, I will do my best to answer it. Or if you can't, I won't, because I can't see it. Let's see if I can find it. There we are. I've read your article about diversifying revenue and including bread and butter revenue. What should I consider bread and butter projects? Oh, I love this question. So what are bread and butter projects, and what should I consider bread and butter? And first, I agree with my articles that you asked the question about, which is think of your revenue not just in terms of, oh, I need to win the next client, or I need to win 5 clients. But what's the mix of your revenue? There are different qualities of revenue. You might have, for instance, we work with some small clients, and there's a limit to the number of small clients we will take. And then there's kind of mid-sized clients, and then there's large, and these are different qualities of revenue. Bread and butter tends to be the smaller, lower margin work that it might not excite you as much as the breakthrough work you're doing, the clients that stretch you, but it keeps the lights on. So the whole idea of bread and butter is bread and butter stops you from starving when you're really hungry, but you don't want to fill up on it. Because if you fill up on it, then you don't have room, you're no longer hungry for the good stuff. So you want just enough bread and butter to keep the lights on, to keep you from panicking if you have a little bit of a dip in your revenue. So that quality of revenue, that particular stream of revenue, tends to be, like I said, it's stuff you could do really easily. You're very good at, and may be things that you did 10 years ago in your career or 20 years ago. You can't charge us as much money for it. Maybe it's not as long duration. Maybe it's not quite as exciting. It might be, for some of you, marketing research type projects, or basic strategy projects, or projects for slightly smaller clients. Those would all count as bread and butter. Again, the important point is to recognize it is valuable. to have bread and butter on the table. So absolutely go for bread and butter business, and to limit it. You should never let bread and butter expand beyond 40% of your business. 20% is nice, somewhere between 20 and 40, and you can let it fluctuate. You say, ooh, we're having a little bit of a dip in the kind of revenue we really love. Maybe we'll just win a little bit more bread and butter. So again, we're not panicked. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Again, if you have questions about bread and butter, you can type them into the chat. But let's see what the next question is. Deidre, we should be able to handle another question. Thank you. How long should it take to turn around a context document or a proposal for a prospective client? Well, this is asked, I think, by someone who probably is feeling a capacity pitch. What's the turnaround time to deliver a proposal, or what's the turnaround time to deliver a context document? If you had no clients and you had nothing else to do, then you should be able to turn around a context document or a proposal within 24 hours. You and I are talking right now, Eastern time, United States, it's almost 12:30. And I would say, by end of day or tomorrow by noon. So those are, if you had nothing else to do. The challenge is when you're really busy. And ideally, you're busy. We all get into these spots where we have a lot on our plates. So what's reasonable? What's fair? I would say you never, ever in any circumstances want to go beyond one business week. Meaning today's Monday, because this is when we do our LinkedIn Lives. So Monday, by end of day on a week from today, you will have a document summarizing what we talked about, and then we'll go from there. Or by end of day a week from today, you will have a proposal. That is, I think, the absolute outside. Your clients will get a sense for how responsive you are, how quickly you will turn around their questions, by how quickly you turn around your proposal, how quickly you turn around your context document, which means this matters. So if 1 week is the outside and one day or even same day is if you don't have much else to do, what should you target? And I would target between 2 or 3 business days. And most of your clients, most of your prospects are going to view between 2 and 3 business days as, wow, that's actually pretty good. Because most folks out there, they'll take a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to pull something together. 2 business days, that looks pretty sharp. And since they have things on their plate also, that should work well. All right, again, other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Deidre, I think we have time if I talk quickly to do one more. So let's see if we can get one more question up there and we'll address it. I work with staffing companies like Cadlant, Business Talent Group. I'm not sure how to balance applying for projects with upcoming vacations. Are there best practices? Okay, great. Yeah, so I get the issue here. The issue here is that, wait a second, what if I apply for a project, but I'm not available? Won't they get all pissed off at me? And I'll answer this one really quickly, just because we want to keep these to 15 minutes. The answer is just apply. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about your vacation. If you're taking a month off, like I do, so I take a month at a time, then if you happen to win the project, you still can probably say, look, or if you're in discussions and they seem interested, you say, look, this looks great. I'm not sure what your timing is. I'm actually going to be away for the month of May. But don't worry about it. Don't put friction in your own way. Just win projects. Just do your best. If you're on Catalant or you're on BTG or any of these sort of platforms, Umbrex or Veritux, and you have an opportunity to win a project, put your best foot forward. At the next step, when you're in discussions, then at that point, you can say, here's some timing challenges that perhaps might be a problem for this project, or you might need to know about. Often the client will be like, that's fine. To get the right person in here, I mean, heck, we wanted to do this project 2 months ago, and we just got to it. So put your best foot forward. Don't worry about your vacation schedule. Try to win the project. When you're in the later stages, of course, be candid and let folks know. So hopefully that answers that questions. I got to those 4. That wasn't too bad. Submit your questions and we'll continue this next week. We've hit the 14-minute mark or beyond already. Before you go, I do have 2 requests. Request number 1 is if you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, please connect. Deidre's put it down below. So LinkedIn, David A. Fields. If you do not see my weekly articles, then subscribe and you're in for a treat. So just subscribe. Again, there's how to subscribe right here, davidafields.com/subscribe. If you don't like them or you don't like the stick figures, you can always unsubscribe, of course. That's it. Those are my 2 requests. I appreciate you being here, especially during our soft launch of this new thing that we're putting out into the world. Have a fabulous week. Always remember that consulting is not about you. It's about them. It's about your clients and your prospects. So give them value, give them kindness, and I will see you next week.